is the Bamboo X1 Carbon, and it's an awesome machine. Build quality is fantastic, it works really well, the failure rate is very low, and of course it came onto the market in a great storm. It uses Core XY and a welded steel frame. Inevitably, this is going to be the yardstick against which all other printers of this type are going to be compared, because this has what I consider two serious problems. The first one is it's pretty expensive. You're looking at about £1,000 for the base machine and about £300 to £400 for the AMS system, so that's a lot of money to spend on a printer. And the other one is to ensure that it worked. They used the concept of walled garden. Now, walled garden is something that Apple used, and really it's whether you like that kind of thing or not, and a lot of people don't. And of course those two drawbacks mean that a lot of competition is going to come into that space to try to fill that area where the drawbacks of this exist. It's absolutely inevitable. Then this morning, this arrived. It is the Flashforge Adventure 5M Pro. They sent it me to have a look at, so let's get out of the box. And that's it out of the box. Now, right away you can tell the difference. The case is here, and they're plastic. And of course in the Bamboo, the case is all metal and these are glass. But you can buy this today on Amazon for £400. And that is a big price difference, and it's going to be reflected in the materials and method of manufacture. The question isn't that so much as how will it stack up against the Bamboo in terms of its price? Now with these things, what they're trying to do is an out-of-the-box experience. You pick it out, do a little bit of setup, and you should be up and running as quickly as possible. So that's the ambition. And this is what was in the box. It was in a bag. There's a bit of plastic to protect everything, but all the other stuff is inside. And what we have to do is remove these plastic bits and do that little bit of setup that's required. Okay, that was quick. I mean, it consisted of little more than taking out the packaging, undoing the 4 bed plate retaining screws. They hold the bed plate firm during transport. There's only 4 of them, and they've got little yellow arrows to show you where they are, and then putting the filament holder on the back. Yes, the filament holder is on the back, but that completed the out of the box in probably, I don't know, 5-10 minutes. Now the packaging contains the usual stuff that you get with this. There's little instruction books, some software, some spare filament, some glue, some snips, a little bundle of tools to help you do the bits that we just said, and then really interestingly, this. This is a 0.6mm nozzle. It comes fitted with a 0.4 nozzle, and one of the great USPs of this is the ease of nozzle change. So that is the print head. To remove it, it's just held on with magnets, so you just lift it up and out of the way. And what you'll see is a nozzle and these 2 red handles. Squeeze the red handles together, take a good grip of the nozzle and just pull it straight down. And that's the nozzle out. To replace it, squeeze those together and push the nozzle nice and hard back in there, and that's the nozzle replaced. And then we can put the cap on just by sliding the cap back on in the right orientation. Here we go. So replacing that nozzle, what a breeze. I mean, it will mean that you're going to have to buy these from Flashforge, although I have seen people changing that nozzle tip all by itself. But I think that's astonishing actually, because that's actually a bit of a pain usually. So doing that, well, for me it's brilliant. Anyway, it is a Core XY machine. It's got an all-metal frame. This plastic enclosure, I think, is what differentiates the Pro from the 5M. Internal, it has HEPA filters, carbon filters, couple of fans, air recirculation, little camera to look at everything. So the bells and whistles you'd kind of expect these days from this kind of machine. So I've set it up right next to the Bamboo, which might be a little unfair of me, but let's face it, it is never going to escape comparison, and equally the Bamboo is never going to escape its competition. It's one of the great things about our way of running stuff. This constant competition means that we're getting things at better and better prices, and they build on each other. So when this first came out, because it's actually quite an old machine now, this is a year old, this came out in 2023, the errors or the problems that earlier machines had are being worked on by manufacturers to be unique selling points, and they get gradual improvement over time, and so we can see that improvement. Anyway, I've put them side by side, I've plugged it in, turn it on at the back, and then we press that button to turn it on the front, and it will go through its initialization routine, and it's really just a question of following the prompts on the screen. So it plays a little happy note when you first turn it on, goes through its calibration, which is auto leveling and vibration compensation, and then asks you to load the filament. When it does vibration compensation, it actually sounds a little bit like an aeroplane taking off, but it only does that through the calibration. And to load the filament, all you do is hang the thing on the hook at the back to fit it on, and feed it through this white plastic tube. It'll load up the nozzle and heat the filament. When it's done that, it will say print, and you press print because it'll print a little test cube. There we go, that one there. There we go, there is our test cube all printed, and now we're ready to go, ready to create our masterpieces on this. Now a couple of things are curious about it actually. This thing, the PEI sheet, has this plastic handle. That's really good actually, it makes it very easy to move around and use, but it is only 220 by 220 and it will only go 220 high. Remember the bamboo is 226 by 226 by 226, and so it is smaller in its print area than the bamboo. And there's another curious thing, is that it has no unload function, it only has load. What you're meant to do is go to that white tube there, pull it back, snip it off, feed in some new filament and press load, and it will squeeze out the old filament and replace it with the new one. Now it kind of makes sense, because if you think about it, if you're dragging something back up, you're increasing the likelihood of clogging, and if all you're doing is forcing it through, then you're not going to clog as much. So it sort of makes sense to me, but it is a bit weird when you first meet it that you don't unload, you just load, as it were, and I found people a little bit upset about that, but I can understand the logic of it, and why not. The screen itself is really very usable. I mean, the prompts to do the calibration were, it's the kind of thing that if you were going to be in a school or a library, then you would be able to follow that through without any assistance whatsoever. So it's really straightforward to use it from the screen, and the screen has the usual things you'd expect: X, Y, Z movement, changing heat, all that sort of stuff, changing filament types, no problem at all. And it does use a wide range of filaments, and you can check out the specification sheets, but it's a wide range, like TPU, ABS, PLA of course, and many, many more. It is a hardened steel nozzle, and so it can cope with those slightly more abrasive filaments. But absolutely, it was so easy to get out of the box and get using. Now let's have a look at the software. So the software is on this little USB stick that comes in the pack, and it offers something called FlashPrint, which is their own thing, and that's a fork of Orca, I believe, and it also offers Orca Slicer. Interestingly enough, it offers a Linux package, a Debian package. You can install it on Linux, and then of course Windows and Mac. Usual sort of stuff, just stick it in there and click on install, and it will install the software for you, and that's your slicer. You can connect to the Wi-Fi, which is pretty simple to do. Just go to the settings screen, click Wi-Fi, enter your Wi-Fi, or if you want to, you can sneakernet it through the USB to get your images onto the USB port, and then onto the machine to print them that way. Whichever one really you're most comfortable with. Now slicers, people have their favourites, and of course, like anything, they'll argue about which one's the best. For me, it's pretty much of a muchness. I don't find that much difference between them, and I find them all about as useful as each other, which is why I really don't care that much. But they do have their proprietary one, and it's actually quite useful and allows you to see through the camera and record through the camera. So we have to do a lot more printing with this to get an idea about the longevity of it, but right out of the box we can say some very definite pros and cons. And some of the pros are, well, I really like the usability of it, how easy it was to set up and how clear the screen is for accessing the various functions. It's one of the best screens actually, one of the best menus to deliver that functionality. There's an awful lot of prompts as you go through it, and so that makes it very easy to use. Of course, price has got to be there, because that's, it's not inexpensive, but for what you're paying, I think you get a lot, and I think it's well worth the price in that price bracket. The pricing is really good for this kind of printer. One of the other things it's got is that internal-external air that we were talking about. If you're wanting to circulate and clean the air inside because you want to keep that at a constant temperature, brilliant. If you want to flush it out and bring new air in, say like you're printing PLA or something like that, brilliant. So it's really good with its ventilation and its recirculation system. This is an odd thing. It's actually attached, and of course that makes it great because you then don't have to find somewhere to put it, you're not going to lose it. So attaching that was a nice design decision. This handle on the PEI sheet I really like because it makes it so much easier to lift up and put back in. So it's got some very definite pros. Of course, one of the big things is the software that it comes with, and the fact that this is supplied with Flashforge software, but you can use Orca really quite easily, breaks that walled garden, and so you can have an awful lot more that you can access because of that. So I like the idea of the walled garden being broken. Well, one of the things that's both, and I suppose a pro and a con, it depends where you come down on these things, is this thing, the changeable tool head. I mean, you are forced to buy Flashforge gear if you for this. And like I say, you can swap those out if they're wearing out, and I have seen how to do that, but you are tied into that. However, that ease of being able to change that over is going to encourage me certainly to experiment more with different nozzle sizes, which I've been wanting to do, but actually haven't because it's been a bit of a pain to do that. And so that's both a pro and a con, I think, and it's really going to be to do with what you think about it. Me personally, I like that. I don't mind paying the extra little bit of money to Flashforge for that convenience, and so I really like that. So it's a kind of a dividing line. The cons have got to be the size of it actually. It's 220 by 220 by 220, and that is a little bit smaller than a thing like the Bamboo. So it's one of the smaller machines, and that can be a limiting factor when it comes to that sort of stuff. The other one is, well, it's always on, and that means it's always creating noise, which is a bit of a pain. You can hear it now, the fan's going, just cooling the electrics because of this hefty backplate. That noise really, when you put it next to your desk and it's constantly going on, is surprisingly wearing. So the noise level of it always being on, I think, is a bit of a negative as far as this is concerned. But these things, well, it's a bit like buying a car. You go to a car showroom, you can buy a Rolls or you can buy a Mini. There's no perfect answer. You get what you pay for at the end of the day, and if what you want to choose is the luxury of a Rolls, well, knock yourself out. If you want to get from A to B and pick up your shopping, choose a Mini. And these things are going to bring their negatives along with them. A Rolls uses an awful lot of fuel, and a Mini can be a little uncomfortable because there is no such thing as a perfect thing. It's to do with, do the pros fill your needs while the cons don't drag it back too far to make it a pain? And to be honest, I would say that this one has got a nice balance going there. I've certainly enjoyed setting it up and using it as much as I have, and I certainly will be doing more printing with it and comparing the prints to the Bamboo. But I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching, and please do remember to like and subscribe.